Hello and welcome to the Valentine's Views podcast, your place for intelligent, we hope, discussion of the New York Giants. And this week we're going to be going through some of the NFC East teams, Giants rivals in the NFC East. I guess we'll call it NFC East week. And we'll begin that today by talking to Rick Snider, longtime columnist in the Washington, D.C. area and current host of the wildly successful Rick Snider's Washington on YouTube. Rick, thank you very, very much for a few minutes, and thank you for the colorful shirt today.
Oh yeah, I've got my own garden this year with sunflowers. So aren't the Commanders and Giants really friends? I mean, we've had this long relationship, going
Well,
dating back.
you and I are friends. I don't know if the Commanders and the Giants are friends, but they've been sort of the bottom half of the NFC East for a while, and when is that going to change, Rick?
Not this year. I'll tell you that. I mean, I think the Giants are three, and like last year, third was still, an okay team, and I think
Hmm.
Washington can be about a 500 team this year, which is what they were last year. So normally I wouldn't put you in last place. They've got a lot. There's a lot going on. Oh, there's always a lot going on down here. Field.
Of course, you're in DC. Of course, there'd be a lot going on. And the biggest thing going on with the Commanders is where we have to start is the pending sale of the franchise from Daniel Snyder to Josh Harris, who currently also owns the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. Do you? The last I saw, it looked like that sale might go through, might become official fairly soon. Do you think that's going to happen? And how do folks in Washington feel about this sale?
Well, it's going to be approved by the NFL Owners Committee on July 20th. The Finance Committee asked the team to basically tweak the offer a little bit, the bidders, and so they did that. So now they've done everything they want. Dan Snyder's gone. He lives in England now, so he's their problem. And you lose the Revolutionary War, you take what we send you. And they didn't get July 4th off. We did. So that's it. Winners get off. So it's going to, it'll take a few days before the actual money changes hands and whatever. The team opens training camp for the veterans on the 26th. I think the rookies come in the 22nd. They went back to an old way of doing it. So by then, more or less opening kickoff of the training camp, they'll have new owners. And here we go. It's like, welcome to the NFL. Here we go.
You expect anything to change immediately with the Commanders, or do you expect this not to have much impact, at least on the 2023 season?
Well, I mean, they're literally coming in hours before the first practice. So you can't change coaches. It's going to be
Right.
kind of hard. You can't go sign anybody. I mean, you take this hand and they've also more or less, we've heard say that the front office and everything will just, business side will stay like it is for the 6 months of the season. Everyone basically gets to prove themselves to keep their job. But I would expect in January there'll be some business side, and if football doesn't do well, then you could definitely change the coaches too. So come January, it might be, if you can hear my voice, leave. I don't know. That's what, it could happen that way. But there'll be definitely some changes. You don't spend $6 billion for a business and say, well, you haven't done that well, but keep on going.
Right. So, Coach Ron Rivera, team president Jason Wright, GM Martin Mayhew may all be short timers at this point.
Yeah, and that's going to color some thinking. Do you really want to go with this quarterback, Sam Howell, who's got one career start, when your job's on the line? And if they stumble out of the gate, they have two easy games in the beginning. They have Arizona and Denver. You got to win those two games, or at least 1-1. But you've got to start. If they don't, and Rivera's never had a good start in his first 3 years here, he may want to go to Jacoby Brissett just because he's a decent journeyman and try and win games. It's a lot of short-term thinking, I think, on play calling and stuff like that. They couldn't do much for player acquisition in the offseason because Dan Snyder was leaving. He wasn't going to spend any money on the way out the door. So, I think the football staff does have to. There'll come a time when it's about protecting yourself, and that hurts long-term thinking on a team.
Absolutely. What's the buzz on Sam Howell anyway? Is there a belief that he can be an NFL quarterback, or is this just really an awful spot for a young, first-time starter in the NFL to try to prove himself?
Well, they've got 4 new offensive linemen, including Gates out of New York, who desperately needs a haircut. But
no, Rick, you and I are just jealous. We'd love to have that hair.
Oh, my hair! I had that hair at 17, but that was.
I had it. I had it back in the day too, but not anymore.
That was the 1970s. So this is what's left. I think offensive line's got a lot of gelling to do, but could be okay. And if they're okay, they've got enough tools for Howell to be there. They brought in Eric Bieniemy, the whiz of Kansas City Chiefs. So they have potential. And I think Howell has a good arm, especially deeper. I liked a lot of what I saw last year off the field, well, off the games, but practice sessions and all. I think he can play. He's not afraid on this. So the question is, does he have enough time? The defense is going to keep games lower scoring, so he doesn't have to go out there and hit 30 points. So I think Howell has, if they allow him, they can set him up for success. But if a team gets nervous about things, then they're not going to do that. There's a lot of players that are like that in the NFL. But I think Howell has the tools to be successful.
It's just one of those deals where I think we talk all the time in the NFL about situations and being in the right place at the right time with the right staff. And you just have to wonder, as you said, if this is the best time for Sam Howell to be cutting his teeth as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, it would have been maybe better last year. But this team has gone through, I think they say it's the 7th straight year they're going to open with a different starter. Last year they got Carson Wentz and had to give him a chance before they tossed him. 7 straight years with a different starting quarterback is pretty impressive.
That's crazy.
And
that's worse than the Colts. That's worse than the Colts, Rick.
I mean, none of them played long either. They always got hurt. So I think it's been like 11 quarterbacks in 3 years, something crazy like that.
Wow.
They had a guy at one point because of COVID. They signed him on a Friday and played him on Monday. I mean, that was against Philly. Yeah. I mean, that was crazy stuff has happened with quarterbacks. So I don't know. The weird part about Howell, he doesn't eat meat at all. So name another NFL quarterback that's he does eat chicken tenders. I'm sorry, he eats chicken tenders. He won't eat red meat.
Wow.
12?
Oh, that's
a
crazy.
Strange thing. That is a strange thing.
That's crazy. So maybe the Giants shouldn't feel so bad about that 4-year contract for Daniel Jones.
Well, look at Jones. There was a guy everybody's yelling about. I thought, this guy isn't a bad quarterback. He wasn't in the right situation. He got in the right situation, and he looked great. Now, was that a one-timer and you're going to burn through a lot of money? We'll see. But finally, if you can match a coach to a quarterback, that's really every time you change coaches, you have to let them have their quarterback, in the end. Because if they don't mix, and it's happened in D.C. so many times where the coaches didn't want to carry over quarterback and they just ruined it, then you're not going anywhere. So I would expect if Howell is only decent at best this year and they change coaches next year, you'll see a first-round pick come in here.
Absolutely. I'm not sure. I think the entire NFL world would like to be in on Caleb Williams, but I'm not sure everybody's going to get that opportunity. So,
yeah, they're not going to be so bad that they could get Caleb Williams. So I think they'll go with Howell for as much as they can, and then he'll be the backup. They'd love to have Howell succeed because he's cheap. If you can have a rookie quarterback contract, you can go spend money elsewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy? It's been so interesting with him for years and years not being able to get an NFL head coaching job, finally taking the Commanders' offensive coordinator job. And again, the situation there may not be great for him to succeed just because, as you said, the push-pull of future versus present. But what are your thoughts on Bieniemy and whether this was actually a good move for him to make?
I think it worked out for him. I mean, the fans already want to fire Ron, just give Eric the job. And come on. I haven't even called a play yet. I mean, he yells a lot. Big deal. I mean, a lot of coaches will bring energy and yell a lot. That means nothing on there. But I think you've heard players at times go, "Oh, I hated playing for this guy," and all those people said, "I love playing for him." I think it comes down to the player. If you grew up in a house maybe with military members or some authority figures, you got yelled at all the time. God knows we did in our age, and it doesn't bother you at all. But if you're somebody who everybody said, "Oh, you're my sweet precious baby," and they coddled them, you can't handle this guy. So that's to me, that's the difference. And I don't hold that against Eric, but you do have to learn how to work with everybody. He brings a lot of energy to practices and such. That's fine. Does that win games? No. So we'll see what his play calling is going to be like. Please don't just throw backs and ends. I mean, the preseason games, that's all it's going to be. It's just going to be throwing one dump ball pass after another to ends and backs. But they've got some good receivers. And we'll see what he can do there. If he's any good, he can take this to maybe be the head coach somewhere else if it doesn't last year or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or maybe get the job here. I don't know. We'll see. We've got to see what happens. I mean, like last year with Carson Wentz, it'd be nice to see a first practice before I throw anybody away.
What are your thoughts on the Commanders draft class? I was really interested to see them take Emmanuel Forbes, who, what does he weigh? 165 pounds. I thought he might be a guy that the Giants would be interested in at 25 if he was still there. Giants ended up with Tay Banks out of Maryland, who I'm sure you're familiar with as well. Let me phrase it that way. You look at Forbes, you look at Banks. A couple of years down the road, who's going to have the better end of that deal?
If Forbes is healthy, I think he's the better player. But I'm of two minds with Emmanuel Forbes, because when I first saw he weighed 166, Ed, let's not underplay him now. He put a rock in his pocket.
Oh, okay. Sorry. 166. Got to give him that extra pound. I mean, he can have one of mine.
You remember the term chicken legs? I mean, he's a ball hawk with chicken legs, basically. He's got good football senses of things. I've watched him in practice a lot. He understands the game. He's a real predator. I mean, there were things he did in early practices I saw that said, this dude knows how to play ball. That aside, 166. I bet opening day, when they put out the roster for training camp, it'll say, my over-under is 181, because you can put whatever you want on that scale number, But the combine was a real number because everyone's watching. But in a team roster, it's just a trainer writes whatever he wants, up or down. I've seen guys suddenly lose 20 pounds, on the scale. So I think he plays 170s, and then the whole season you get worn down. Are you vulnerable to injuries with that kind of lower body like that? I mean, you get a 300-pound guy come out and hit you from the side. That scares me. But I like his football part of it. That's great. I can see why they took him. But is he going to be on the field? That's the question.
Speaking of on the field, looks like the expectations are that Chase Young is going to be healthy, should be ready to go. There were a lot of trade rumors around Chase Young. What are the expectations? What's the feeling about Young? I mean, he's a guy that when the Commanders were able to take him and the Giants fell to 4 and ended up with Andrew Thomas, a lot of Giants fans felt like they got the worst end of that deal. And right now, obviously, it doesn't look that way. So what's the word on Chase Young these days?
He didn't come to the OTAs at all. He never has. And I really think about Chase sometimes as a guy who likes being an NFL player more than he likes playing football. He likes being around the game, but but that said, he came to minicamp as he was supposed to, and he looked good. Now, you can't tell anything in camp because you're not allowed to hit. You don't have pads, but you can see the speed. And I thought his first step kind of speed was really good, better than I'd seen in a while. He had 7.5 sacks as a rookie, played great as a rookie. He's only had 1.5 sacks over the last 2 years because of, he got an injury. He was playing awful in 2021 because he spent the time in the offseason doing commercials, and he came in and everybody blocked him. He was playing awful, and then he got a bad injury, missed a year, came back, played the last 3 games, limited last year. He looked okay. And then, so now we see him at minicamp. The team doesn't give him the 5th-year option at $17 million. They just decided, you know what, if you play great, we can franchise you at 24 if we really want. Rivera, I think, he won't say it, but you can tell that he's not real impressed. And a lot of times it would chase his commitment to football. He was the only guy not to come to OTAs last 2 years. He was a team captain at one point, and he's not there. That's the kind of stuff that bugs him. But Chase likes money. I think he's going to try and ball out this year to get a big contract somewhere. On the other side of the line is Montez Sweat in the same situation. They picked up his 5th year, but he's going to be a free agent. Can they keep both of them next year? Doubtful, but that'll be a question for the next owner, whether he pays it, and the next coach. So Chase could give him a good year, or it could be nothing. We just don't know.
It's such a shame when you see these guys all the time who they like what football gives them in terms of money and lifestyle. They just don't necessarily like football and like the preparation and the work that it takes to be as good as they can be or should be. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, Chase came into camp in shape. He's never been that kind of problem. He just likes his own private trainers. He likes to do stuff his way elsewhere. But, being around the guys makes a lot of difference on it, too. You're only on the field OTAs for 2 hours, 3 days, a couple times. I mean, it's not that much of a commitment. I think everybody else is there. I mean, it's voluntary, but I think it's a bad look.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just finish up. We talked a little bit about the division of the NFC East with, the Giants and Washington have been sort of 3 and 4 for a while now. The Giants had a good year in 2022. Who knows how that's going to go this year? There's some people think they're due for regression. Some people think they'll step forward. We'll see how it goes. I think the roster itself is better. But in your mind, is everybody in this division just looking up the Eagles for a while yet?
Probably. I want to say Dallas, but why should I? They don't ever seem to quite pull it off. I mean, it's been since 1995 was their last Super Bowl. I mean, people talk about the Redskins at 91. I think Dallas is right behind that at 95. They've been forever, not a good postseason team. They've got some parts that they need working on, although I see Jerry Jones just picked up $50 million for being the subject of a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, like he needed that, and like I need to spend time watching a Jerry Jones documentary. That I'm spending 0 minutes of my life watching that, Rick.
Well, you know what? Jerry's an interesting guy. I'll give him that. I've known him a long time, and I always like listening to Jerry talk. I wish he was a better owner than Dan, but in the bottom line of things, doesn't win any games in the postseason. So I guess Philly's still going to be your one. I don't know if they'll have quite the magical year of last year. Maybe they fall back a little, but I think they're still the best team. But Dallas and New York aren't that far behind them. So you got to win your division games. That's, if you can do that, you got a shot at it. And Washington's, they could be a 9-8 team and still be in 4th place.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, and maybe one of these years, if there's a game worthwhile, one of these years maybe I'll venture down to DC and pester you in the press box.
Well, the new stadium with new owners coming in is now more likely to be 10 years from now. So they're going to spend $100 million to fix up FedEx. Duct tape costs a lot of money now, and trying to fix up the barriers. They're going to fix up the rich people suites. Big deal.
Should I bring my own chair for the press box, Rick?
The folding metal chairs are really optional for that. There's nobody in the upper deck, so those playing Giants fans, I'll say that because we have lots of New Yorkers here in this area, so they all come to the game, fill it up. But it's been, FedEx Field got old real quick. It was patterned after Giant Stadium. Cook loved Giant Stadium, the old Giant Stadium. Mm-hmm. And he built a stadium based on the past, not the future. And it got old quick. And they're just going to have to limp along because with the new owner, he's got to start over. But there's a lot of things going on now that I really think they'll get back to the RFK site when they finally move. So we'll have bouncing stands and they can kick everybody's butt then.
You mean you won't go like deep into Virginia for a new stadium?
Well, that was such a nonsensical idea. And the worst part of it, I found out, is Dan Snider was talking to Elon Musk about building a tunnel for people to be able to drive underground all the way like 40 miles outside of town for this. That was part of the talk. Well, they are building they're building a tunnel from DC to New York. Elon is that you will be able to go from New York to Manhattan in 28 minutes when this tunnel's done.
As long as it works better than Elon Musk's version of Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on that new thing now, Threads. So in case Twitter folds, I'll have a new place to go.
Yeah, I'm there too. I haven't really used it yet, but I have a feeling we'll all be migrating somewhere sooner rather than later. Anyway, Rick, thank you very, very much for the time. Let folks know a little bit about your YouTube channel and anything else you've got going on.
So Rick Snyders Washington is a series mostly of 2-minute videos. So I do chats on Mondays in season, and I do, I'll do some stuff like pizza shows that are a little longer. I go eat pizza with old sports writers. We do that. So if you come down, we'll do a pizza show and about Washington's many monuments and stuff, because I'm also a tour guide. So if you're coming to DC, you want to do it, you can look up my my Twitter, Rick Snyders Washington, and let me know. People do that. So I kind of, I'm semi-retired, and yet I'm still working good 40-hour weeks. I was going to retire after last season, but when Dan said he was going to sell the team, I thought I'm sticking around for a little longer.
Too much fun, too much to talk about.
Well, there's finally something positive. It was just such a dark cloud with Dan Snyder. I just decided last year, this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I don't have to do it. You and I have been sports writers for a long time. And I can finally move on. But I thought, now I want to stick around and just see what happens. Just because you change owners doesn't mean you win, but at least you stay out of the courtrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and hey, at our age, if you're more or less doing it on your terms and doing what you want to do, then then it's pretty nice.
That's why I get to wear whatever I want when you get old.
All right. Well, we're not going to talk wardrobe, Rick. Thank you very, very much for the time. Hopefully we'll do it again during the season. Giants fans, thank you as always for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.